What is up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man, and I am here with part 4 of What If Deku Had a Shadow Wolf. Now, before I get into the story, just have a quick announcement to make. I will be taking a break from doing stories for just a few days because I want to get started recording for an April Fool's idea I've had for the past few months. So, that's it. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the story. This is What If Deku Had a Shadow Wolf, Part 4. Hope you all enjoy. Where we last left off, we've discovered that Tokoyami is working with Mani, the moon goddess, in a desperate attempt to get her powers back. She ended up blowing Tokoyami's cover, and now Koi-san has two problems to deal with. We then cut to Koi-san and Jaigoku in the car being escorted by Korigiri and Tomura. They pull up next to the school, and Tomura hands the girls SOS beacons. This is just to assure that their safetyness, and if they ever need assistance, they just press the button and they will track them. Here, you two should take this. They're SOS beacons. They're to assure your safety. Okay. They take the devices and they attach it to their phone straps. Korigiri opens the door for the girls, and Tomura wishes them good luck. They leave and head inside. While walking down the hallway, the two talk amongst each other about future events. Jaigoku says, "Hey, Koi-san, what do we do if Tokoyami comes around?" "Well, we do what we must. He is just about as strong as I am, and I think he might have all the same powers as me. But I fear that he might be stronger than I'm anticipating him to be. I need to stay on guard, keep up with my training, work harder, and stay ahead." "And what about Overhaul and his henchmen?" "Well, they haven't made any moves yet, but that doesn't mean that they won't anytime soon. You have to keep an eye on them as well." As they keep on walking down the hall in silence, Koi-san has a little something going through her head, something that's been bugging her these past 2 days that she's been away from school. When she saved Uraraka and Ida, she wasn't sure what it was, but her body just moved on its own. She thinks inside of her head, why did I do that? I mean, if they were able to save themselves, well, maybe not Ida because I tied him down, so maybe it could just be the fact that the problem was between me and Tokoyami. Yeah, that's it, and I don't want people to get caught up in my antics with my enemies. Yeah, that's gotta be it. That's gotta be it. Deep down, she's denying herself, and she knows that that's not the case. Soon, they reach their classroom door, and they open it, and the first thing that happens was that Ida ushers to the door and bows to Koi-san for protecting them from Tokoyami. Koi-san says, "No, it's no problem. I'm just glad that you and Uraraka didn't get hurt." Uraraka runs up next to her and says, "Yeah, but it was because of you that we were not hurt. Thanks a lot." A smile comes across her face, and Koi-san blushes a bit. Suddenly, Mina Ashido jumps up front and says, "Yeah, and the way that you went giant with that giant shadow wolf of yours, that was so awesome. Hey, can I see it?" Sure, Hati, if you'd please." Hati then appears from behind Koi-san. She stood about the same height as her. Mina is more excited than before, and she slowly reaches up towards Hati to touch her snout, and she says, "Can I pet her?" Suddenly, Hati then said, "No." With that being said, Mina then pulled her hand back out of fright. She did not expect that shadow to actually talk to her. "Oh, well, I'm sorry. Just gonna go this way." Soon, Aizawa enters the room and tells Koi-san that the police and pro-heroes are in search of Tokoyami for her safety, so there's nothing for her to worry about. Koi-san, being a bit irritated by that comment, says, "I'm not worried. I'm mad as hell." That's understandable. But right now, we need to stay focused and keep our eyes on the curriculum. Today, we will be going to a facility called the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. Everyone puts the acronyms together and says the USJ, and Aizawa explains that they will be going there to partake in its simulations. In it, they will be monitoring them and see how they behave in certain situations. Oh, and Koe-san, Jaigoku, why is it that you don't have hero suits yet? The two girls then stare at each other with annoyance, and Koe-san says, because we told you we didn't want to be heroes? Remember? We told you we would give this school a 1-year try? Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll just have you stick to the ordinary gym uniforms. Everyone else, get your hero suit on and meet me outside at the bus station. And so, they meet him outside in the bus station and they're on their way to the USJ. While on the road to the USJ vicinity, everyone starts talking about who has the strongest quirk. Most of the boys would say that Bakugo has the strongest quirk because it's more destructive, while the girls were saying that it's between Jaigoku and Koe-san that has the strongest quirk. FYI, they don't know that Jaigoku has half red and half white hair because her hair is completely black. So therefore, it's not easily displayed if she has fire. Just a quick FYI. A girl by the name of Yaoyorozu says, after closely observing Koe-san's quirk, it would seem that she is able to take the shadows of inanimate objects and is able to create anything she wants, including weapons. And it would also seem that she is able to create life with her quirk. Take, for example, her wolf. It's made completely out of shadows, and it seems to be able to think and breathe and talk on its own, just as it displayed just back a few minutes ago and at the fighting vicinity. A boy by the name of Denki Kaminari says, now that you mention it, she does have a lot more power than anyone else in this class. I have to ask, what are some other things you can do? All eyes are on Koe-san, and she says, well, first of all, Miss Yaoyorozu, that it is a she, so if you'd kindly not address her as an it, that'd be nice. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. It's fine. And as you mentioned before, I do have the ability to manipulate shadows on inanimate objects, but I can also do animate objects, living things. Like, if you'll take example, my own shadow. Her shadow is projected on the ground to which everyone looks. As you see here, it's whole, but if I reach down and I take my right hand shadow, it's completely gone, and it only looks like I have one hand. Everyone is a bit impressed. It looks like some sort of trickery or some lighting effect or something, but then she turns to Jaigoku and says, and let me show you something else strange that happens. Jaigoku, high five. They both try to high five each other, only for Koe-san's hand to go completely through Jaigoku's hand. Everyone is impressed, and they're like, how is this even possible? Koe-san says, I think it might have something to do with a dimensional perspective. You see, since my body doesn't really have anything to project on when it's like this, it tends to phase through things. She goes on to show them that she can also use her whole shadow to shroud herself, and this makes her whole body intangible, In other words, when she's like this, nothing or anybody can touch her, as displayed in part 2. Everyone's impressed, but remember when I said it tends to show off her curvature? Yeah, Mineta was staring her down. Someone then asks, but if you're intangible, how is it that you're not phasing through the bus right now? Well, it's simple. It's because of the light. You see, shadows may be my main focus of my ability, but when I'm like this, shadows can be a bit of a problem, just a little bit. You see, light shows shadows, and as long as I am on a light surface, it doesn't matter the density of the light, I cannot phase through that object. However, if I step on a shadowy surface, such as underneath my stool, her foot phases through the bus. I can phase through it. And if I step completely into the shadowy part, I end up in the Earth's crust. And I could potentially plummet to the center of the Earth. But I have discovered this amazing thing that this ability that I have when I phase through things is able to do. You see, whenever I slowly return my body back to normal, the Earth's gravity shoots me back up towards the surface of the Earth, and it almost feels like I'm flying. It's really amazing. Uraraka says, "Wow, that's so cool." Thank you. Uh, what are some other things you can do? Well, there is one more thing, but I'd rather not show nor mention it. Almost everyone was begging for her to tell them what it is, and she decided to go ahead and tell them. Well, my last ability is shadow manipulation. You see, it's kind of self explanatory. I can telekinetically move anything that has a shadow and bend it to my will. Does anyone have anything that I can use to show? Yaoyorozu conjures a bear from her body, a stuffed bear, if I may clarify, and says, "Here, use this bear." She hands her the bear, and she sits it on the ground, and it starts slowly moving. It slowly starts to stand off the ground, and it starts walking around like an actual bear. A lot of people were like, "Wow," while Mr. Aizawa was like, "That's extremely disturbing." Yaoyorozu then asks, "What about living things? Can you telekinetically move that as well?" Well, yeah, I can, but people have told me that it does tend to cause them some discomfortment, so I don't use it on people at all. Uraraka would then say, "Oh, hey, Koi-san, you were about to tell me why you and Jigoku didn't want to become heroes. Well, why exactly? What were you going to say?" Koa-san was about to say what she truly feels about heroes, about how weak they make the people of society be, but she thought saying that kind of stuff might be a little bit suspicious, so she decides to say that society has enough heroes, and she thinks that there's not enough therapists in the world. She goes on to tell them that she wanted to be a child psychologist to help children with troubled pasts. Uraraka would say, "Oh, well, that's nice of you to do that for young kids. I do hope that you have good luck in the future." They all agree with her, and soon they arrive at the USJ and they are greeted by 13, who took them inside the building and explained the meaning of the vicinity, explaining that they will be put through dangerous outcomes that are simulations, such as burning buildings, earthquakes, and sinking ships, etc. They walk into the foot of the building, and Koi-san asks if other people partake in these kind of things. 13 says, "No, it's only for potential heroes." "But why though?" says Koi-san. "I find this place to be a good resource for people, like young adults moving out of their parents' home, and if there's ever a fire, they could use that fire simulation to practice escaping safely. Or maybe the boat sinking simulation where when anyone's on a boat, they can use that to practice evacuating safely." Aizawa tries to silence Koe-san, saying, "Koe-san, we're here to train. That's it." Koe-san says, "I know that. It's just, I think that people could use this equipment to better their survival skills. This place is for potential heroes. This place should be for everyone, including quirkless people. People walk these streets every day with not a care in the world. And some might not worry that others might come up and harass them. And what do? They scream for help instead of defending themselves or simply giving up their values just to save their lives." And I gotta say, it sickens me because as the bigger the heroes get, so do the potential villains out there. And who's in the middle of it all? The civilians. I swear, the bigger that heroes get, the more trouble heroes bring. That's why this world is so damn dangerous, because that's all you people ever bring! Koe-san feels a hand on her shoulder. She looks. It's Jigoku. "Hey, breathe, Koe-san. Come over here." She takes her aside and says, "You got to stay calm." "I'm sorry, it's so infuriating. They can make all this stuff for the heroes, but what do they make for the people? What do they do for them? Nothing. They do absolutely nothing." Hey, breathe in and let it out slowly. She does this and apologizes again. But as they plan on rejoining the group, the front doors to the USJ open, and everyone looks and sees Tokoyami walking in with the light of the sun right behind him. He looks down, staring at Koe-san like a man on a mission. She looked up at him with furiousness. Hati! She comes out with a loud growl until she saw 7 shadowy figures standing right behind Tokoyami. They all walked in her sights, and she starts backing away in fear, for she sees gods she thought would be dead by now for the past 5,000 years. Njord, the god of the wind and sea, Magni and Mauti, one brother of strength, the other of bravery, Vidar. Hello all you individuals out there, hope you're enjoying the video. This is a future anime man here. I'm just wanting to pause right here to tell you that I actually pronounced his name wrong. It's actually Vithard, and later in the video I am going to correctly say it, but just know that I said it wrong right here. Hope you enjoy. The god of vengeance, Vali, also known as the god of vengeance, Sol, the daughter of Sol, the sun god, and Hornir, the god of silence and indecision, mystery, and of avoidance. "Oh no," said Hati, as she returns back into Koe-san's body. "Whoa, Hati, why did you go away? This is not good, child. Run! You need to run away. You need to get out of there." "Why? What's wrong?" "Just run, child. There's too many of them." "But Hati, those are the Norse gods, child. Run!" Aizawa speaks up, saying, "Hey, who are all of you? And Tokoyami, I hope you're here to turn yourself in to the police and explain yourself." From above the stairs, Tokoyami looked to the left and he nods. Then he looks to the right and nods. And they all scatter. Everyone gets in a fighting stance. Tokoyami then leaps down the stairs at Koe-san. She conjures a staff, but just before he could reach her, Jaigoku then conjured an ice dome around her and the rest of their classmates. It was about 10 feet thick, so it would take a lot of force to break it. Hati would say once again that they need to get out of there, and Koe-san, taking her word for it, because of how worried she sounds, she then asks 13 if there's any escape hatches or any, back doors out of this vicinity. To which 13 says no, the only way out is the way that they came in. "Damn it." Bakugo says, "I don't get it. Why are we hiding behind this ice dome? Why don't we just fight?" Koe-san says, "Because, Bakugo, those aren't just ordinary people with quirks. Those are Norse gods. And they're very dangerous. They're not a force to be reckoned with. We need to get out of here." Aizawa would ask, "How do you know that?" And Koe-san would say, "Because she's done her research on the Norse gods, and she knows they're too much for even Aizawa to handle." Through the crystallization of the ice, Koe-san sees the light of the open way, and she takes in a deep breath and says, "Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out there, and since they're basically working with Tokoyami, then that means they're after me for some reason. So I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to cause distraction, and you all are going to run towards the exit." Jaigoku says, "But Koe-san, what about you? Look, she whispers in her ear, once I know that you're all safe, I'll step into the abyss and I'll hide there and I'll conjure a portal somewhere else safely. There's no time. When I yell go, you all run towards the exit. Jaigoku, be sure to help them get out of here." Jaigoku then says, "Wait, Koe-san, why don't we just use these?" She's suggesting the emergency beacons on their phones, and Koe-san tells her that it's not that dire of a situation. And besides, they got this. right? From the other side of the ice, Magni then pulls his fist back, ready to strike again, until Koe-san bursts through the ice and Magni falls back and falls down. The rest of the gods were hot on her trail. She ran and ran towards the burning facility, the fire zone. But before she entered, she yelled for her classmates, "Now! Run!" They all bursted through the ice thanks to Bakugo's explosion, and they start running towards the exit. But unfortunately, Bakugo was feeling a bit froggy that moment, and he decided to shoot his shot, tried to go after Mari. But in doing so, Mari then grabbed him by the head, and he slammed him to the ground, causing it to crack, which also knocked him out. Koe-san sees this, and she quickly ushers towards the two. She doesn't know why, but it just feels like her body is an autopilot again, and she's saving someone who should be saving themselves. Anyway, she jumps into the air and she kicks Mari in the face, causing him to fly back a few feet. She calls for Ida to quickly come and retrieve Bakugo. But, in the process, Soul tries to go after Ida. But Koe-san quickly removes Ida's torso shadow, which caused her attack to completely phase through him. She then quickly picked up Bakugo, handed him to Ida, and returned his torso shadow to him and told him to run. But in doing so, she accidentally kept Ida's right arm shadow. She thought, there's too many dangerous things going on right now. I gotta get out of here. I'll give it back to him later. She then equips the shadow onto her right arm, and she runs towards the fire zone and she enters. And just as the door closes, the rest of the gods bursted through the fire zone door. With Koe-san not in sight, they look around, and then Tokoyami says that they need to split, and they agree. But little did they know, Koe-san was in one of the nearby buildings, hiding, taking a well-deserved breath. She stood in the corner and said, "Hati, why is it that you're afraid of these people?" Hati says, "It's not all of them, child. It's just one. His name is Vithar. And legend has it that he is destined to kill my father. I've never met him before, but when I saw him in the doorway, every fiber in my being was telling me to get away." Okay, so you're definitely scared. That means that this situation is serious. So, how do you defeat a god? Well, I've seen it happen before. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. But that doesn't matter. Right now, we have a chance to escape. So we should take this chance while we still have it, child. Let's go. Suddenly, Koe-san's ears met the sound of Magni calling out to her, like a master calling out to its dog, even whistling to call her out. Koe-san looked outside in an alleyway, and there she saw Magni looking for her. Koe-san said, "No, not yet. I must study my opponents, who are apparently on god level." She then conjures a shadow staff, and she waits. Magni then says, "Where are you, you little bit?" Suddenly, Magni was caught in a chokehold, with Koe-san holding her staff over his neck. Suddenly, he gets the upper hand on her by repeatedly slamming his back into the wall over and over again until it damn near caved in and cracked. Koe-san lets go, which caused her great pain. She starts coughing out blood, and blood started dripping out one corner side of her mouth. Magni then clears his throat, and he turns to Koe-san. "You really thought that was going to work on me, mortal?" Koe-san would start crawling backwards, trying to regain her breathing. Her heart starts beating rapidly as Magni started following her out into the open. She continues to crawl backwards until she hits a pair of legs. She then looks up and she sees Maudie smiling at her. He then grabs her by the neck, picks her up, and says, "So you're telling me this is the bitch that stole Monty's powers? I gotta say, I'm not impressed." He then punches her on one side of her face and lets her fall to the ground. He then leaves a large bruise. She starts to shake and shiver with fear, losing control of her breathing. On all fours, she starts crawling forward until she sees a glowing pair of feet that almost look like a fiery mist. Looking up, she sees a girl that looks like it's glowing the same orangey yellow aura like the sun. Fire surrounded her body, and she looked at Koe-san with anger. She then unexpectedly kicked Koe-san in the face. She flew backwards, landing in the arms of Horinir, who looked deep into Koe-san's eyes with pity and says, "I will not raise my hand towards you." He lets her go, and then Enjor then grabs her off of the ground and says, "You will repent for your sins, creature." With all of his strength, he then raised her up higher into the sky and then slammed her into the ground, knocking all the air out of her. As she lays on the ground, just barely breathing, she's just staring at the ceiling like she's about to pass out. Her ears ring until Volley walked into her blurry sights, staring down at her. He reaches down, picks her up by her shoulders, and says, "Stand up." But instead, she falls back to the ground on her knees, blood running down her face and her forehead, along with her nose. Every breath that she took was shivering. Next to enter her sight was Vithard. The two stared at each other, but he didn't say anything to her. Instead, he walked back a few feet, not turning around. Tokoyami then walks up front, asking everyone to move aside. He is face to face with Koe-san and says, "I'm sorry about this, but it's nothing personal. I just have my orders." He then flexes his right hand, and suddenly it changes. The reality around it throbs, and his hand resembles that of outer space, with it being outlined with a light pink and purple. Time slowed down as Tokoyami's hand then went through Koe-san's torso, looking for the power crystal. When out of nowhere, Koe-san felt a strange sensation flowing throughout her entire body. All of the seven gods felt a disturbing presence coming from this girl. She starts breathing more heavily than she was before, and a black aura surrounds her body. Everyone starts backing up out of fear of unknowing of what's about to happen. Koe-san then looks back up at the deities as she slowly starts standing back up on her feet. The ground started shaking, and Koe-san then clenches her fists, and she takes a deep breath, and she screams at the top of her lungs, and suddenly she bursts with a strange energy. They all cover their ears, for her screams were so loud and they felt this strange feeling in their legs that made them give away, and they all fell to their knees. While on the ground, Tokoyami looks at Dark Shadow, and he notices that it started wiggling like a squid tentacle. Suddenly, the others' shadows turned on them. They went from one-dimensional shadows to third-dimensional shadows that were still wiggling like squid tentacles. Their shadows wiggled around and started destroying things as Koe-san continued to scream. The shadows grew even bigger and destroyed the fire unit simulation, and then they destroyed the glass dome of the USJ. From outside, everyone else's shadow, Class 1A, 13, and Aizawa's, their shadows also went berserk as they all fell to the ground, desperately trying to cover out her screamings. Their shadows also turned on them, destroying buildings that were around them, and this just kept spreading. Any living thing that happens to hear Koe-san scream, their shadows would attack and destroy anything that is around them. Fires have started, people were killed. This was a bad situation. Back at the USJ, Koe-san had stopped screaming, and as she does, everyone's shadow then goes back to normal. All the gods, including Tokoyami, fall to the ground, unconscious. Koe-san breathes slowly, and she looks around and sees the outcome of her actions. She speaks in a tired voice. What happened? My throat hurts. Hati walks out and says, Child, we need to leave now. Oh, okay. They open a portal to the abyss, and they reformed one outside in the real world, in an alleyway that was filled with trash and dumpsters. They were in the middle of downtown area. She's still shaken up. She hears people screaming for help, cries of babies, people yelling for mercy. What happened? Koe-san is shaken to her core. Did I do this? Hati tells her yes, but it's not her fault. Heck, they didn't even know that they can do this. Suddenly, she hears grunting noises from behind her, deeper into the alleyway. There stood a man with grayish-white hair. He struggled to even stand up straight. Ugh, what happened? It feels like I got hit by a train. He then looks at an injured Koe-san. Wait a minute. I know you. Yeah. You're that All for One. You're All for One's successor, right? Yeah. Your boss seems to have trouble with my boss, Kai Shizaki, and he deems you and two other people need to be exterminated. He then takes a syringe out from his pocket. It was filled with a strange red liquid, and he stabs himself in the neck and injects himself with it. It's nothing personal. I just got a job to do. Suddenly, Koe-san spots something from the man's body. It slowly started expanding outwards. It looked like a silver sword. But then, another one appeared from his head, and another one from his lower arm, and another one from his leg. Suddenly, the blades then contort and bent, aiming right at her, and within a flash, the blades dash towards Koe-san, piercing her body. One blade pierces her lower left abdomen, another one pierces her upper left abdomen, and one blade pierces just in the center of her torso, just barely missing her heart. She stood there in shock as the whole world froze. The blades were then pulled from her body. Blood started oozing out of her wounds as she falls to her knees and then completely on her stomach in a pool of her own blood. The man then starts walking off into the light and says, "Good luck, kid. I hope there's another, better life after this cruel one." He walks off into the light as Koe-san reaches for her phone. It was destroyed, But that's not what she was reaching for. She was reaching for the emergency beacon, and with the last of her strength, she then pushes the button as it starts to emit a red glow. She lays there in shock on the ground, and then she passes out, hoping that someone will save her. And that's where we're going to end this story. Yes, I am leaving you guys on a cliffhanger. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this what if, and if you liked this video, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe if you aren't, and if you made it to the end of this video, consider yourselves #blessed, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Goodbye.